They laughed at him. A teenager, barely old enough to drive, standing alone in a courtroom where power and pride ruled. To the judge, he was just another kid who didn't belong, too young, too inexperienced, too out of place. The smirk, the dismissive tone, the condescending looks. Everyone believed he was about to be crushed. But what they didn't know was that this kid carried something none of them expected. A secret so sharp, so undeniable, it would turn humiliation into triumph. How could one teenager outsmart the very system designed to silence him? He wasn't the kind of kid people expected to see inside a courtroom. At just 17, he looked like any other teenager. Backpack slung over his shoulder, sneakers a little worn, eyes full of determination. But behind that youthful face was a story few knew. He had grown up surrounded by struggle, watching how the system treated people who looked like him. His neighbors, his family, even his own friends, time and again. He saw them humiliated, dismissed, and pushed aside. While others his age were worrying about school dances or weekend games, he was burying himself in books. Law books, history books, anything that explained why the world seemed stacked against people like him. He studied late into the night, memorizing cases, dissecting arguments, and building a mind sharper than most adults in his city. So when his chance came to step inside that courtroom, he didn't walk in by accident. He walked in prepared. Still, no one there knew the truth. To them, he was just a kid out of place, a distraction, maybe even a joke. The judge himself barely looked up at first, his smirk already betraying what he thought. But this was exactly what the teenager had been waiting for. A chance to prove that age, skin color, and perception meant nothing against brilliance. And soon, that courtroom was going to see it. The teenager sat quietly at the back of the courtroom, his hands folded neatly, eyes locked on the judge. Around him, whispers echoed. Some snickered, others shook their heads. To them, he was just a kid who didn't belong. What business did a high schooler have in a place where seasoned lawyers struggled daily? The judge leaned back in his chair, amused, his voice carrying the weight of authority and arrogance. "Son, do you even know where you are?" he asked, the courtroom chuckling under its breath. The boy nodded calmly. He knew exactly where he was and why he was there. As the trial began, the judge wasted no time in mocking him, cutting him off, and dismissing every word he spoke. The attorneys on the opposing side smirked, certain the boy would crumble under the pressure. They threw out complicated terms, cited obscure cases, and waited for him to falter. But he didn't. Instead, he matched them, line for line, case for case. His memory was flawless, his reasoning airtight. Still, the judge refused to acknowledge it. Each time the boy made a point, the gavel slammed, drowning his words. "Sit down," the judge barked. "You're out of your depth." The audience laughed again, enjoying the spectacle. But beneath the laughter, something was shifting. A few faces in the gallery began to frown, realizing this wasn't just a naive kid fumbling through a grown-up game. The boy's voice grew stronger. With every objection he countered, every precedent he quoted, he forced the courtroom to listen, even if the judge tried not to. He spoke not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been told they weren't enough. Every insult thrown his way only sharpened his resolve. Minutes stretched into hours. The tension in the room thickened. The attorneys who once mocked him now shuffled nervously, struggling to keep up. And still, the judge smirked, clinging to his pride. But pride can only hold for so long. The boy was dismantling their case piece by piece, exposing cracks no one else had dared to see. By now, the room had grown silent. The laughter was gone. The smirks had faded. All that remained was disbelief. Could it be? Could a teenager really be outsmarting not just the attorneys, but the judge himself? The answer was coming. And when it did, it would leave everyone in that courtroom stunned. The judge leaned forward, his smile thin, his voice sharp. He slammed the gavel, trying to silence the boy one last time. "Enough. This is a courtroom, not a playground. You're making a fool of yourself." The audience chuckled nervously, waiting for the boy to shrink back into silence. But he didn't. Instead, he stood taller, his voice cutting through the air with a calm authority that even seasoned lawyers struggled to summon. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "if I'm a fool, then let my arguments fall apart on their own. But if they stand, if the law supports them, then it doesn't matter whether I'm 16 or 60. The room froze. The boy's words struck like a thunderclap. He wasn't pleading for respect anymore. He was demanding it. And with every citation, every precedent, he backed up his claim. The opposing attorney fumbled through his notes, sweat glistening on his forehead. He tried to respond, but the boy's arguments dismantled every defense before it could stand. One by one, the pillars of their case collapsed. And then it happened. The boy presented a precedent so precise, so airtight, that even the judge couldn't ignore it. The courtroom erupted, gasps, whispers, disbelief. For the first time, the judge faltered. His smirk faded. His gavel hesitated midair. He searched for a loophole, a way to dismiss the boy once again. But there was none. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone in the room, attorneys, spectators, even the officers standing by the door, realized the truth. This wasn't just a teenager fumbling through a courtroom. This was a prodigy, a mind sharper than anyone expected, exposing not only the flaws in the case, but the arrogance of those who had mocked him. The judge's face tightened. His pride had been shattered, his authority challenged, and in that moment he knew he had underestimated the very person he tried to humiliate. The boy didn't just hold his ground. He won it. When the gavel finally struck, the sound was different. It wasn't the sharp dismissal of authority. It was the reluctant acknowledgement of defeat. The case was over. The boy had not only defended himself, he had dismantled the very foundation of the accusations thrown against him. The courtroom emptied slowly, people whispering in disbelief. Some left shaking their heads, others smiling as if they had just witnessed history. For the boy, though, there was no celebration, only quiet pride. He had walked into that room mocked as a child and walked out recognized as something greater. But the impact reached far beyond those walls. Word spread quickly about the teenager who had silenced a judge, about the brilliance that couldn't be denied, no matter the prejudice stacked against him. Teachers who once doubted him suddenly spoke his name with respect. Neighbors who once whispered now looked at him with awe. And yet, beneath all of that, the truth remained. He should never have had to fight this hard for respect. His age, his skin, his background, none of it should have been a barrier to justice. But it was. And he proved that even in the face of mockery and dismissal, greatness cannot be silenced. This story isn't just about a boy who outsmarted a judge. It's about what happens when society underestimates someone because of who they are. It's about resilience, brilliance, and the refusal to be defined by prejudice. So ask yourself this. How many more hidden geniuses are silenced every day, not because they lack ability, but because the world refuses to see them? If you believe in stories that expose injustice and celebrate resilience, then let this be more than a story. Let it be a movement. Subscribe, share, and keep watching. Because the more we shine a light on voices that others try to silence, the fewer stories like this will be forgotten.